For section 5, topic 7, we're going to take a look at completing this square to write the quadratic equation in vertex form, and then we're going to solve it to find the zero or the zeros by taking the square root of both sides. Alright, let's take a look here. The very first step is to group the ax squared term, and the bx term. So notice we're going to put those two inside the parentheses and leave plus 5 outside the constant there, that c term. Alright, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to factor out the a term. Alright, we're going to factor out the a term. The a term here is 2. Alright, if we factor it out, we end up with x squared here, because 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared, and negative 8x divided by 2 is negative 4x. Close the parentheses, we still have that plus 5 outside the parentheses there. Alright, the next thing that we're going to take a look at is that we actually want to now make this a perfect square trinomial. Alright, so inside the parentheses we want to make a perfect square trinomial. Alright, so we need to take half of this middle term. Alright, so we need to take half of negative 4. Alright, half of negative 4, and then we want to square that value. So half of negative 4 is negative 2, and when we square negative 2 we end up with positive 4, so we're going to put plus 4 here to complete the square. Now we're going to take that same number we just used to complete the square, which is the 4, and the 2 here, and we're going to multiply them. Because remember, this is 2 times everything inside that parentheses. So 2 times positive 4 is positive 8. And we want to take the opposite of that, alright, from this side so that we do not change the value of the equation. Alright, at this point, now we can factor out or factor the perfect square trinomial, and then we're going to combine the two constant terms. Alright, so I'm going to drop down my 2. And when we factor x squared minus 4x plus 4, remember, this is a perfect square trinomial, so we can begin by taking the square root of the first term, so x squared, the square root of that is x, and then the square root of, we take the sign of the middle term, so the middle term is negative, and then we square the final term, which is 4, or the c term, so the square root of 4 is 2. So we have x minus 2 squared here. And then we're going to now combine the positive 5 and the negative 8 to give us negative 3. Alright, so what we just did was we completed the square to write this in vertex form. Alright, vertex form gives us the ordered pair for our actual vertex. Alright, and it gives us our vertex in the form of h comma k. In this case, negative 2 will be the h and k will be the negative 3. So what will be the actual vertex? Not that this problem is asking for it, but if you needed to know the ordered pair for the vertex, you would write negative 2, negative 3. The next part of this, part B, for number 1, we're going to say if this is a function, we want to find the zeros. If that's the case, we want to set the answer we came up with. We want to set that equal to 0, and we want to solve. We're going to take the equation written in vertex form. 2 times x minus 2 quantity squared minus 3, and set it equal to 0. Alright, when we do that, the very first step is to get rid of that constant. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. When we do that, we end up with 2 times x minus 2 quantity squared equals positive 3. The next step is going to be to get rid of this monomial, or this 2 here. We have 2 times that expression squared. So to get rid of that 2, we divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 gives us 1 here, so we're going to bring down x minus 2 quantity squared. and then we're left with 3 halves here. 3 divided by 2 is the same as 1 5/10. Alright, the next thing, remember we're solving for x, so we see that x minus 2 quantity squared is there. So how do we get rid of that exponent? We're going to do the opposite of squaring a number, which is to find the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Alright, and remember square root can be both positive and negative, so we're going to put plus or minus the square root of 1 5/10. So the squaring and square root are inverses, so we end up with x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1 5/10. Alright, at this point we're now going to do the inverse to get rid of that constant of negative 2. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. And when we do that, we end up with x is equal to 2 plus the square root of 1 5/10, or 2 minus the square root of 1 5/10. When you take the square root of 1 5/10, you end up with 1 2/10. So this x is going to be 2 plus 1 2/10, or this x is going to be 2 minus 1 2/10. The final answers are x is equal to 3 2/10, or x is equal to 0 8/10.